and welcome to the Real Truth TV. I am your host, the Educator. My mission is to bring you the truth, the real truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Note, I am only human, therefore I may make mistakes, errors from time to time. I will apologize for any realized and mistakes and do my very best to correct them. I have as a business policy or YouTube channel brand policy or motto, honesty is our best policy. Therefore I will strive to abide by it and keep all honest. Note, again, I stress that I am only human and I am prone to making mistakes or errors from time to time, so we will strive to be honest and apologize for any mistakes, errors realized, brought to my attention, and rectify them. I am the Educator. I decided to use this title instead of Father, Pastor, Reverend, etc. as I found the Aramaic word in English when Isho, Maria, Yoshua Mishika, or Jesus the Messiah, was called Educator by the rich young man on the road to Damascus. In the Bible scripture he says Rabboni or Rabbi or good master, or in the Aramaic I forget what the actual word is, which translated to English was educator. I decided to use this simply to differentiate myself from the other titles people have used, like Reverend, Pastor, Father, and so forth. Again, I chose this because in reality I will be re-educating, quote unquote, quote, re-educating, unquote, all in regards to the real truth about the scriptures from the original language written and spoken by the Old Testament scribes and prophets, and the language written and spoken by Maria or Maran, Yeshua Mashika, Jesus the Messiah, in the original Galilean Aramaic language, which was also spoken by Israel's disciples. So the Old Testament sacred tongue or old tongue or scribal tongue, the Assyrian Aramaic, Katav Asherit or Kotib Asherit, the Lishana Atika Sumeria, into translated in English by a Mesopotamian, native born Mesopotamian from Bet Nari, who speaks the it's a modern vernacular of the ancient Aramaic. He's a translator and filmmaker. He has experience. He's been doing it for about 15 to 30 years. Okay, so I'm using him as my source and also other sources. Okay, but first I'm going to go right back to what I believe to be the beginning, okay, with the Mesopotamians, the Sumerians, the Sumerians, Akkadians, and Babylonian, and the cuneiform texts, the myths about the flood, Gilgamesh, and others. So I'm going to cut through all this fluff here, like I could start from the very beginning of this book. Okay, Oxford's World's Classics, Myths on Mesopotamia, Creation, the Flood, Gilgamesh, and others, edited and translated with an introduction and notes by Stephanie Dalley, who is very highly recognised. Okay, this is the revised edition. So all this fluff here, I've left it out because I don't want to be reading all this unnecessary stuff. Okay, so this is basically the title of this book that I'm reviewing today, this ebook. That's PDF here, ebook. Okay, so go down here. You can get it online, it's free, or you can download it. So I'm going to go past all this, I'm going to go to the content page. Okay, and this is what it has here. This is the figures, singular and abbreviations, introduction, chronological art. I'm going to start at Astrahasis, and then I'll go here and other videos. Okay, I think this is probably the best place to start, because supposedly in Genesis it states that all men met in one place in a desert region called Shinar or Sumer. They built this Tower of Babel, Babel, trying to reach the gods. Supposedly God speaking to the manifestation, and the Holy Spirit, because says, if this is what man can do, then he can do anything. So let us, see, so there's two or more, right? Let us confuse them by giving them different languages, right? Because they had one language at that point, which is supposedly Aramaic. Others will say it was Hebrew. Okay. So they knocked down, they toppled this tower with a ziggurat, and gave them many languages and scattered them all over the earth. Okay. So we're going to start there. Where is it? Could be here. Okay, this introduction. These stories all concern the deities and people of Mesopotamia, a rich alluvial country which lies between the great rivers of Tigris and Euphrates in modern Iraq. The background is that of a very ancient, largely urban society, supported by agriculture and pastoralism, which prosperity was assured by a firm government capable of controlling irrigation for agriculture and by extensive trading. You can read the rest yourself by downloading this book, and get to the. Here's some chronological chart. Okay. I don't know if it's accurate, but we'll stick Stephanie Dalley, if she's that popular, that renowned. Hopefully it is. Okay, it's a map of the region. Okay, it's sideways, because that's how it is in the book. Okay. And here is the book I'm going to read from. This is a Sumerian Mesopotamian myth. Astrahasis. Astrahasis, the wise man who built an ark and saved mankind from destruction, is a figure of immense prestige and antiquity, to whom various literary and religious traditions were attached. He was known by a variety of names and epithets, which were translated into different languages, sometimes with reinterpreted meanings, sometimes abbreviated. That's reinterpreted by them, sometimes abbreviated, and in this way his fame spread over huge distances through a span of some 5,000 years. In Mesopotamian literature, he was the survivor of the flood, together with his wife, and was granted a form of immortality by the great gods. The story of the flood was one of the most popular tales of ancient times, and is found in several ancient languages, reworked, okay, make note of that, reworked, to suit different areas and cultures, so that different settings and details are found in each version. The specific information which follows helps to illustrate how widely diffused the man and the story became in the ancient world. So here, where it says it's reworked, okay, that's why in a lot of my videos I'll probably stress that these Jews, Hebrews, Israelites, etc., they adopted and adapted it, right? And they reworked it, okay, changed the details, okay, of these myths, because that's what they were myths, to suit different areas and cultures, okay, their own ideologies, so that different settings and details are found in each version, right? Okay, so for example, in the Hebrew Bible, Christian Bible, it says Noah built the ark, and his wife hopped on board with his 8 sons, or the sons and the wives. So there's 8 people that survived all together. His name was Noah. He's referred to as Noah. In the Egyptian, there's a similar name, Nut. Okay. But in this mythical Sumerian, Akkadian, Babylonian mythical text, he was called Upachim, and he was immortal. So that verifies to me that they've adopted and adapted it. They've reworked it to suit the different areas and cultures, and their ideologies, and so forth. Okay, enough of the fluff. Okay, Astrahasis in history. According to one version of the Sumerian king list, in the years just before the flood swept over the earth, Tutu, who was named as the father of Astrahasis and Gilgamesh, was king of Shurupak. Modern Tel Farah and central southern Mesopotamia, where some of the earliest writings known in the whole world have been unearthed. According to a different version of the Sumerian king list, Astrahasis, called there by his Sumerian name Ziusudra, himself ruled the city Shuruppak, preceded by his father, who was named like the city Shuruppak, and who was presumably regarded as the eponymous ancestor of the citizens there. A wisdom composition known as the Instructions of Shuruppak is now attested on clay tablets from the early dynastic periods in the early 3rd millennium BC. There's a footnote here. He is preceded in that list by Ubara Tutu, and was not the first king of Shuruppak. Okay, and it contains sage advice given by Shuruppak to his son Ziusudra. Thus, Astrahasis was a notable figure at the dawn of history, and the literary tradition was attached to him at an extremely early period. The names of Astrahasis. Extra-wise is the meaning of his name in Astrahasis. He is, okay, there's the name there, Ut-na-Pishtim, Uta-na-Ishtim, and Gilgamesh, a name which can mean he found life. Sumerian Ziusudra is an approximate translation of Akkadian Ut-na-Pishtim, together with his epithet, in which the element Sudra corresponds to Astrahasis' epithet, recruiting far distance. The name used by Berosus for the survivor of the flood is, I'm going to have a guess here, Suthros, probably a phonetic rendering of Ziusudra. Okay, there's more details there. What's it? It's probably a phonetic rendering of Ziusudra. Prometheus, Deucalion's father, may possibly be an approximate Greek translation of Atrahasis, and it is just possible that an abbreviation of Uta-na-Ishtim was pronounced Noah. Okay, from early times. It was pronounced Noah in Palestine from very early times. Okay, that's how they pronounce it for some reason. Atrahasis is also found as the name or epithet of a man who features in Hittite story about Kumarbi. It's been suggested that the name Ulysses, used by the Romans for Odysseus, comes from the Hittite Uluya, I don't know how the S goes, as a translation of Atrahasis' epithet for the far distance, and so forth and so forth. A similar abbreviation is used in the name of the Islamic sage Akkadia, I'm not really sure how you say it, also called Akkadia, who guarded the fountain of life and gave water from it to King Sakar, meaning rock, who thus became immortal. This episode is related in one of the Arabian Nights to the Gilgamesh of Islamic narrative, Babylonia. Who, having travelled through many lands, lost his faithful advisor Efan in a fruitless attempt to obtain the ring of Sumeria, with which he might travel to the fountain of life and drink the water of immortality. Berosus was a Babylonian priest who wrote a book called Babylonia in the 3rd century BC to make the culture and history of his country known to the Greeks. What's this? Number 3. Number 3. Yeah, it just says no evidence show that Ud Z was ever pronounced phonetically. The name Akkadia here bears a new etymology. It's the new meaning, origin of the meaning. Yeah, a new meaning. And it originated at some point. The green one, Akkadia, is a holy man of Islam, is buried at Banias on the Golden Heights, where a tributary of the Jordan River gushes out of the rock. In all these appellations, it is possible to distinguish the real name from an epithet. The text, clay tablets inscribed with the Old Babylonian version of the epic, can be dated around 1700 BC. Each tablet is divided into 8 columns, 4 in the obverse and 4 in the reverse. Some passages in late Assyrian versions discovered in the palace library of the great king Assurbanipal appear to follow the old Babylonian versions fairly closely, but with additions and considerable alteration in phrasing and vocabulary, as far as can be ascertained from the small quantity of text it survives. The author Epic Aya. Get some information there on him. Okay. Previously misread Ku Aya, Nur Aya, and Kasab Aya. Okay. This version of Astrahasis may have been composed in order to justify it, and so forth. Creation of man, according to Astrahasis, the mother goddess Mummy. I guess that's where we get the word mummy from. Mummy, is it Mummy when you look at it? With the help of the wise god Ea, created men out of clay mixed with the blood of a slain god called Iluwela. Man's purpose in life was to relieve the gods of hard labour. This account of man's creation may be compared with that in the epic of creation, in which Marduk used the blood of Kingu, the evil leader of the enemy gods whom he had slain, to create mankind with the help of Ea. Clay is not mentioned, and no brief goddess takes part, but the purpose of man's creation is a gain to toil on God's behalf. Neither account mentions the creation of animals, which is an important preliminary to man's creation in Genesis, priestly source. Okay, so she's saying here that sort of hinting at the Q text by the Friends of Jesus Society, something like that, where they said that in the margin they found there was 4 letters, Y, E, S, and P. Y being Yahweh, E Elohim, S for scribe, and P for priest. There might have been one of them, I can't remember. I haven't read it for ages. Okay, she might be hinting at that's the animal, the creation of animals in Genesis came from a priestly source. The account in Genesis describes God using earth, Adama, to create the first man, Adam, or Adam, animating him with the breath of life. So he was an inanimate soul, and given the breath of life, he became a living soul, or an animate soul. Okay? He was up and walking around. Okay, that soul was encased in the body, was up and walking around. In Hesiod's works and days, written in Boeotia in Greek, around the late 18th century BC, the gods incite the smith god Hephaestus to make Pandora out of clay and water. Both in Greece and Mesopotamia, deities associated with birth and fertility are also patrons of mining, smelting, and coppersmiths class, because they create new forms from basic materials. The flood. Atrahasis, the hero of the flood story, was a citizen of Shuruppak in Lower Mesopotamia. An extensive flood as a natural event sometimes took place in that region. Okay, have a look at name of the book, Timetables of History by Bernard Grun. It's Vernus Lines, but it was translated from the German by Bernard Grun, and lots of other people attempted to finish it, but a lot of them sadly died. But it was completed. I have a revised version somewhere that going to get off the top of my head. I think it was page 3, G Daily Life column. It says disastrous floods happened in the Mesopotamian region. Okay? So yeah, it's basically stating that here, establishing that fact. That's fact. Okay. Atrahasis, the hero of the flood story, was a citizen of Shuruppak in Lower Mesopotamia. An extensive flood as a natural event sometimes took place in that region, where the Euphrates and Spate can overflow and spill across the intervening land into the lower lying Tigris, which itself would often break its own banks in southern Spate, but a flood would be impossible on a similar scale in Palestine, Syria, Anatolia, or Greece. Such floods occur commonly in Iraq, in strata of silt deposits on early dynastic sites of the 4th millennium BC, found by archaeologists, can be interpreted as recording various different floods in remote antiquity. That evidence does not, however, disclose whether one particular flood was more catastrophic than others. It only says that no unusual break in cultural continuity was caused by such a deposit, and that the layer of flood silt found in excavations at Ur is certainly much earlier date than the flood deposit found at Shuruppak. No flood deposits are found in 3rd millennium Australia, and Archbishop Usher's date of the flood of 2349 BC, which was calculated by using numbers in Genesis at face value, and which did not recognise how high schematic biblical chronology is for such early times, is now out of the question. This guy Usher, if I remember reading it in one of the Bible versions, I can't. Maybe it's what's his name? He was talking about the dispensation of the Jews. A lot of people say, he's incorrect and all that stuff. I just can't remember his name. Anyway, he was saying that Usher tried to say that biblical history was around 4000 BCE, something like that. But all life started around 4000 BCE or whatever, but it can't be right if the Egyptians built mounds in the year 2000 or something like that. BCE. In Astrahasis, the flood was sent by the gods in order to reduce overpopulation, a situation which has been compared with the early Greek poem, the Sumeria, loosely attributed to Homer in antiquity and known mainly from allusions and quotations, in which Zeus planned to reduce overpopulation by war. In Astrahasis, war is not used for this purpose. In the priestly account of the flood in Genesis, and in Ovid's Metamorphosis, man's wickedness is the cause of divine anger which results in the flood. In Gilgamesh, the flood story is reused. It's reused out of its original context to mark the time in history after which it was no longer possible for a mortal to win immortality. The flood is also important for Mesopotamian tradition because it marks the end of the period when the true sages lived on earth and brought to mankind the arts of civilization from the gods. Later post-Diluvian sages were sometimes authors or literary figures who worked for known kings of historical times, but they were not regarded as immortal and were additional to the original seven. So, go back here. In Gilgamesh, the flood story is reused out of its original context to mark the time in history. So it's reused. Is it rewritten? Yeah. Details added to it. Sounds like it's just reused out of its original context. Okay, so it wasn't a copy of a copy of a copy. That's what it sounds like to me. Okay, the flood is also important for Mesopotamian tradition because it marks the end of the period when true sages lived on earth and brought to mankind the arts of civilization from the gods. And goes on like that. There are indications that the story of the flood is related in the Old Babylonian Atrahasis, with considerable variation in the Ninevite recension of Gilgamesh. It was not only the one in circulation in Babylonia. It's not the only one in circulation in Babylonia. Berosus, writing from Babylonia for the Greeks in the 3rd century BC, includes some details which are not known elsewhere, except in the priestly account in Genesis. The latter may have been composed or finalized in the early Persian period, late 6th to early 5th centuries BC. Notable items are that the survivor of the flood, Suthros, Noah, is the 10th antediluvian king in both Berosus and Genesis, priestly source, that the month in which the flood happened is named, and that the 10 antediluvian kings who Berosus cites ruled for 432,000 quote years unquote, i.e. 86,400 times 5 years being 60 months, and in Genesis priestly source for 1,656 years, i.e. 86,000, and goes on there. Berosus' account of the flood story must be derived from a Sumerian version of the story, since he names the hero as She-Suthros, Ziusutra, rather than Atrahasis or Ud-Napishtim. And this version connects the flood with genealogical information. The Sumerian king list, compiled in the early 2nd millennium, includes a brief note about the flood, which in that text divides dynasties with enormous lengths of range from more realistic numbers. The Sumerian story of Ziusutra and the flood, still largely incomplete, appeared to be a relatively late composition based on an Akkadian version of the story, and it lists the antediluvian cities in the same way as the Sumerian king list does. An Akkadian account of flood also has been found at Ugarit, a late Bronze Age city on the Syrian coast. It is probable that these ancient Near Eastern flood stories are versions of a tale which originated in Lower Mesopotamia, though not necessarily in a single devastation. Okay, so not necessarily in a single devastation. Might have been a number of them. Okay, as Bernard Grunn's Timetables of History, page 3, column G, Daily Life states there's a number of disastrous floods in the Mesopotamian region. The variety of detail found in them illustrates the kaleidoscope character of the folktale, in which certain basic elements are widely used in new combinations and adapted to national interests and different literary settings. For instance, in Genesis, the dove brings back to Noah an olive leaf, which belongs to the flora of Palestine. Olive trees do not grow in Mesopotamia. Although Astrahasis emphasizes the catastrophic nature of the flood, the ancient Babylonians were well aware that not everything was destroyed. Eda and Ushum makes it clear that the city of Sippar survived, a belief echoed by Berosus, who says that ancient writings were buried there before the flood and later retrieved. Okay, I guess that's from Open. Okay, various stories relating a catastrophic flood are told by classical authors, focusing upon cities which lie far beyond Mesopotamia and featuring Ogyges or Deucalion as the hero who survived. Lucian of Samosata, Assyrian Samsat, who wrote the Syrian goddess in the 2nd century, describes a traditional popular in Hierapolis, modern Membitij, I really didn't have to say that, in central Syria, in which Deucalion was the hero, and it was claimed locally that flood waters vanished down a natural cleft in the bedrock directly beneath the temple of the great goddess. And there's more on that. There's more information there. All these flood stories may be explained as deriving from the one Mesopotamian original used in travellers' tales for over 2,000 years along the great caravan routes of Western Asia, translated, embroidered and adapted according to local tastes to give a myriad of divergent versions, a few of which have come down to us. So yeah, it's a mixture, a myriad of divergent versions. You know, they differ. Okay, they tend to have other details. You know, hint at other. Yeah, basically that. Yeah, they're telling you other stories of it, right? Versions of it. A few of which have come down to us. However, the possibility of several independent origins cannot be dismissed, for the ideal of a universal flood or global flood, may well have arisen to explain observations in different places of the marine fossils and rocks high above sea level, at a time when there was no conception of how geological change took place, nor of how vast was the timescale of evolution. Moreover, when the creation of man was generally supposed to have accompanied the creation of the earth in its present form, an enormous flood, which man by chance survived, would be the only way to account for the presence of such marine fossils, and may have been thought up by more than one inquiring mind. Okay, so when the creation of man was generally supposed to have accompanied the creation of the earth, yeah, that's probably in the Genesis account. Yeah, have a look at that. In its present form, an enormous flood, which man by chance survived, would be the only way to account for the presence of such marine fossils, and may have been thought up, okay, by more than one inquiring mind. Thought up, made up, to verify something, to verify the Genesis account. Although the flood story was known at Ugarit in Syria and Bozkazokwe, I don't know how you say that, in central Anatolia in the late Bronze Age, it may not have survived the Dark Ages in that area, and so may be a late comer into Greek mythology, for it is not mentioned by Homer or Hesiod. In Phrygia, with heroes named on coins as Noah, the tale may have become popular when Jews settled there. It may have been attached at a later date to heroes of much greater antiquity. Where flood stories are found in other parts of the world, missionaries and early Christian travelers may have disseminated them. Okay, there is no reason to suppose that they are indigenous. They may have dissected, cut them up and add some bits to it, adapted and adopted it and changed some details, as I found with the Sumerian myth, flood myth. Something like Upenchim, if I pronounce the name right, was on the seas for like 6 days, and then released a raven or something like that, and compared to the Genesis account where Noah was on the water 40 days and 40 nights, and then he released the dove. Okay, there's no reason to suppose that they are indigenous from these people, the original people. Okay, you go check that out. Check out this week, disseminated. You're going to find out. Overpopulation and mortality. When the gods created the first primeval male and female human beings, they did not allot a lifespan for them. This meant that everyone remained alive for centuries, continuing to reproduce until the earth was overcrowded. So that could be the answer why supposedly some of them in the Bible are said to have lived 900 years. But we'll get to that from the original Aramaic, Syrian Aramaic into English, translated by the native-born Mesopotamian Aramaic speaking translator Victor Alexander. People died only when the gods were forced to relieve the pressure by sending intermittently plague, famine or flood. Knock them off because they got overpopulating the earth. Scholars now agree that damaged text near the end of the epic refers to the gods' decision to institute death as a normal end to human life. The restoration is supported by a newly discovered piece of Sumerian text. This late decision rectified the mistake the gods made in the initial creation of man. In OBV, Gilgamesh Siduri refers to this decision. The gods also decided to prevent some people breeding and to institute infant and child mortality. Okay, here's the translation of the original tablet, supposedly. Tablet 1. And the gods, instead of man, did the work, bore the loads. The gods' load was too great, the work too hard, the trouble too much. The great Anunnaki made the Gigi carry the workload sevenfold. Anu, their father, was king. The councillor warrior Enlil, the chamberlain was Nunuta, the canal controller Inugi. They took the box of lots, cast the lots, the gods made a division. Anu went up to the sky, and Enlil took the earth, with question mark because it's not too sure that that's what it actually says. Took the earth for his people. The bolt which bars the sea was assigned to far-sighted Enki. When Anu had gone up to the sky, and the gods of the Apsu had gone below, the Anunnaki of the sky made the Igigi bear the workload. The gods had to dig out canals, had to clear channels, the lifelines of the land. The Igigi had to dig out canals, had to clear channels to the lifelines of the land. The gods dug out the Tigris riverbed, and he dug out the Euphrates. And I'm not too sure if there's something missing here. In the deep, they set up the Apsu of the land inside it, raised its top of all the mountains. They were counting the years of load, and it goes on and that. The great master counting the years of load. For 3,600 years they bore the excess, hard work night and day. They groaned and blamed each other, grumbled over the masses of excavated soil. Okay, they said blah blah blah. Confronted the chamberlain, moaning about working them too hard or something. Allah made his voice heard. Who was Allah? Allah, right? I've come across a video where, Sumerian, the god of the net. Okay, let's have a look down here. 7. Okay, and they had a big battle. 7, I think it was 7. Just not giving a footnote here. 7. Gap of about 8 lines. Okay, so then they had a big fight and all this sort of stuff. Not too sure where that 7 was. Anyway, you can probably find it's probably at the bottom of the book. Yeah, it goes on about a battle. So they got their way apparently. Okay, yeah, it's a lot of stuff here. I'm not going to go through read it all. You can read it in your own time. At your own leisure. Every single one of us gods declared war. You see there. Nusku. And took his weapons and went and returned to Elil. You see, it's massive war. Okay, we have put parenthesis, a stop parenthesis to the digging. The load is excessive, it is killing us. Our work is too hard, the trouble too much. So every single one of us gods, little g, has agreed to complain to Elil. Elil listened to that speech. His tears flowed. He spoke guardedly, addressed the warrior Anu. No one take a decree with you to disguise, show strength. Call upon one god, met and cast them for destruction. Okay, what are we complaining about? That's Anu, made his voice heard. The work was indeed too hard, the trouble was too much. Every day the earth resounded. The warning signal was loud enough that we kept hearing the noise. Call upon one and cast them for destruction. Who is in charge of the rebel? Who will be in charge of battle? Which god started the war? A rebel was running around my door. When Nusku heard this, he took up his weapons, and so forth, so forth. What's this? Okay, Belet Ili, the womb goddess, is present. Let her create primeval man, so that he may bear the yoke, the work of Elil. Let man be the load of the gods. Okay. Let Eli, the womb goddess is present. Let the womb goddess create offspring, and let man be the load of the gods. You are the womb goddess to be the creator of mankind. Create primeval man that he may bear the yoke. Let him bear the yoke, the work of Elil. Let man be the load of the gods. Yeah. So what through my own study of these myths and research, and come to the realization that these gods, I think I'll be the summary of some of these other myths, they didn't like to go down into the deep dark with these holes, right? They didn't like the dark, because apparently their planet, their home planet, had a ozone layer, let's say, an ozone layer of gold around it, and it was depleting, so their planet would die. So one of their people stole a spaceship, right? Or a ship, flying ship, and he ended up on the planet Earth. And so it was all lush and green and plentiful and all that sort of stuff. But he noticed that there was a Neanderthal man, or pre-Adamic man, or beast, whatever, on the planet. So eventually he goes back and he reports, and then a colony comes, and then they get to these places to find this gold. Don't like the dark, right? So as it said there, one of the gods was told, a womb god, bear the load. Let her create primeval man, so that he may bear the yoke, the work of Elil. Let man be the load of the gods. They created a worker. They created a man, right? A being to do it through this Belet-il, the womb goddess who was present. She is told to create offspring, and let man be the load of the gods. They called up the goddess, asked the midwife of the gods' wife, Mami, you are the womb goddess to be the creator of mankind. Create the primeval man that he may bear the yoke. It goes on like that. Okay. Nintu made her voice heard and spoke to the great gods. It is not proper for me to make it. The work is Enki's, okay, the main god, the big guy. He makes everything pure. If he gives me clay, then I'll do it. Enki made his voice heard and spoke to the great gods, blah blah blah. On the 1st, 7th and 15th of the month I shall make a purification by washing. Then one god should be slaughtered. Okay, so he's a sacrifice, and the gods can be purified by immersion. Nintu shall mix clay with his flesh and his blood. Okay, so they kill off a certain god, he's the sacrifice of the day, and then they mix his blood with the clay, of his flesh and blood. Then a god and man will be mixed together in clay. Let us hear the drumbeat forever after. Let a ghost come into existence from the god's flesh. Let her proclaim it as its living sign, and let the ghost exist so as not to forget the slain god. They answered yes in the assembly. The great Anunnaki assigns the fates. On the 1st, 7th and 15th of the month, he made a purification by washing. Ilawella, who had intelligence, they slaughtered in their assembly, so they killed off this one. Nintu mixed clay with his flesh and blood. They heard the jumpy forever after. A ghost came into existence from the god's flesh, and she, Nintu, proclaimed it as his living sign. So that's a soul, is it? Spirit, soul? The ghost came into existence from the god's flesh, and she, Nintu, proclaimed it as his living sign. The ghost existed so as not to forget the slain god. After she had mixed that clay, she called up the Anunnaki, the great gods, the Akkadia, the great gods, spat spittle upon the clay. Mami made her voice heard and spoke to the great gods. I have carried out perfectly the work that you have offered order of me. You have slaughtered a god together with his intelligence. I have relieved you of your hard work. I have imposed your load on man. You have bestowed noise on mankind. I have undone the fetter and granted freedom. They listen to the speech of hers, blah blah blah. We used to call you Mami, but now your name shall be mistress of all gods. Okay. When she had finished her incantation, she pinched off 14 pieces of clay and set 7 pieces on the right, 7 on the left. Between them she put down a mud brick. She made use of a reed, opened it to cut the umbilical cord, pulled up the wires and knowledgeable womb goddesses, 7 and 7. 7 created males, 7 created females. Okay, for the womb goddesses, creator of fate. He, something named 2 by 2, something named 2 by 2 in their presence. Mami made these rules for people. Okay, there's all these rules here. What's this? And the woman gives birth to the baby. The mother of the baby shall sever herself. I guess that's cutting that umbilical cord from that child. A man to a girl, some bits are missing. A beard can be seen, it's kind of weird, on a young man's cheek. And he goes on and on. She slipped in a staff and opened the womb. Her face was glad and joyful. She covered her head and so forth. She made a drawing of flour, put down a mud brick. Okay. Stuff here. She shall call their Mami. Okay. Ishtar. Yes, it's a Sumerian. I think the Assyrians used that name for a goddess. Because the king, when Jonah was there, realised all that Nineveh, Jonah was saying was true, so he decided to choose the one true God, and told all his people go destroy those maypoles, those statues of Ishtar, and later on it becomes Esther, and then it becomes Easter, over the centuries. And they also they shall call Ishtar Ishara. Yeah. It goes on and on. Okay, 600 years, less than 600 passed, and the country became too wide and people too numerous. The country was as noisy as a bellowing bull. The god grew restless at their racket. Allel had to listen to their noise. He addressed the great gods. The noise of mankind has become too much. I am losing sleep over their racket. I am losing sleep over their racket. Like to say that. Give the order that Surupu disease shall break out. Okay, so, yeah, disease, massive plague, I suppose. Now there was one Astrahasis whose ear was open to his god Enki. He would speak with his god and his god would speak with him. Is he trying to play with him or something? Okay, start an uprising in your own home, let heralds proclaim, let them make a loud noise in the land. Do not revere your gods, do not pray to your goddesses, but search out the door of them, blah blah blah. Okay. There's an order, he takes the order, speaks to the elders, the same thing. Okay, and they made a loud noise, etc. 600 years, less than 600 passed, and the country became too wide, people too numerous. The country was as noisy as a bellowing bull, it's the same thing. The noise of mankind has become too much. I am losing sleep over their racket. Cut off food supplies to the people. Did the vegetation be too scant for their hunger? Let the dud wipe away his rain. It goes on and on. So they basically had no rain, they had no food. Oh my gosh. Same thing again. What's this? Ear with his Lamu creatures shall keep it locked. As for the boat that bars the sea. Ear with his Lamu creatures shall keep it locked. Is that the Leviathan? No idea. He ordered an Anu and a dad to keep the ear above earth locked. So they can't get out here. No, they can't be right. Sin and Nurgle kept the middle earth locked. As for the bolt that bars the sea, Ear with his Lamu creatures kept it locked. Then the very wise man Astrahasis wept daily. Okay. This guy Astrahasis was weeping. Then he heard his voice. He summoned the creatures and addressed them. Basically nothing. A disaster. The broad countryside filled up with alkali. Yeah, that'd be alkali. Like that green plant, I guess. Yeah, it could be something like that. Their looks were changed by starvation when the third year came. Oh my gosh, their faces covered with scabs like malt. They stayed alive by something alive. Maybe they took other lives, I don't know. Ate them, cannibalism. Stuff what happened to them? Took a message from Astrahasis to the gods. Probably complaining. Here's another one again. Okay, Namta. Okay. They gave the order and Surupu disease did break out. Namtar put an end to their noise straight away. Sickness, headache, Surupu, Asaku, sounds very Japanese, blew into them like a storm. The thoughtful man Astrahasis kept his ear open to his master ear, who would speak with his god. Yeah. Okay. Oh Lord, people are grumbling, or sickness is consuming the country. Oh Lord, hear, people are grumbling, sickness of the gods is consuming the country. Since you created us, you ought to cut off sickness, headache, Surupu, and Saku. Okay, his voice is heard. He said to Astrahasis, same thing as before. Do not revere your gods. And the main god, Elul, by the sounds of it, approached the gods, his sons, and said, don't inflict disease on them again. Okay. Basically the whole world had nothing. People were starving and stuff. People's looks. When the third year arrived, the people's looks were changed by starvation. Yeah, I don't really want to describe what they look like. It'd probably be something like these poor Jews in the German concentration camps, starved to death. They're probably looking like that. Okay, there's some more information here. Oh my gosh, about them. Scabs, their faces change and all that sort of stuff. It's on and on, the same thing. Yeah, read it anytime. Yeah, don't read it while you're having lunch. Yeah, yeah, carries on like that. Just he's gonna give a flood, get rid of them all. Inky made his voice heard and spoke to his servant. You say I should find out and be blah blah blah. War. Listen constantly to me. Read hut, make sure you attend to all my words. Dismantle the house, build a boat. Reject positions to save living things. The boat that you build, roof it like the Apsu. Instructions on how to build a boat. Alright. Make upper decks and lower decks. Roof it like the Apsu so that the sun cannot see inside it. Make upper decks and lower decks, and so forth. Well for birds, a hamper of fish. You open the sand clock and filled it. Okay, so you got like a, yeah, this timers. Told the egg time. He told him the sand needed for the flood was 7 nights worth, and so forth. Okay, so there's a whole lot of people making it, not just one man, by the looks of it. The elders, the carpenters brought his axe, the reed worker brought stone, the child brought bitumen, the poor fetched what was needed. Okay, everything there was, fat one, blah blah blah. Okay, the birds that fly in the sky. Oh, he selected and put on board the birds that fly in the sky, cattle, shakan, wild animals, open country, put on board. He put his family on board, eating, drinking. He went in and out, could not stay still, rest on his haunches. His heart was breaking news. He was sick in it. Weather changed, and so forth. Pretty much like the Noah story. About lots of people built that the ark. Okay, this is the Sumerian version, right? And goes on and on. Okay, for 7 days and 7 nights, the torrent, storm and flood came on, gave about 58 lines. Okay, he must have done some sort of sacrifice, they liked the offering. The gods smelt the fragrance, gathered like flies on the offering. Did Eliel dare to come for the smoke offering? Those two who did not deliberate, but seen the flood, gathered the people to catastrophe. You agreed to destruction. Now the bright faces are dark forever. Then she went up to the big flies which Anu had made and declared before the gods. This grief is mine, my destiny goes with his. You must deliver me from evil and appease me, and so forth. Let these flies be the lapis lazuli of my necklace by which I may remember it daily forever. Okay, Eliel spotted the boat, was furious with the Akkadia. No form of life should have escaped. How did any man survive the catastrophe? And then made his voice heard and spoke to the warrior, El. Who but Enki would do this? Okay, I did it in defiance of you. He spoke to the gods, great gods. Enki made his voice heard and spoke to the great gods. I did it in defiance of you. I made sure life was preserved. Okay. Exact your punishment from the sinner. Exact your punishment from the sinner, and whoever contradicts your order, some lines missing. Okay. Let 1/3 of them be, this bit's missing. Okay. Let there be that Pasitu demon among the people to snatch the baby from its mother's lap. Could that be a what's that demon? Succubus? Something like that? Not too sure though. Okay. Taboo. How we seen the flood, but a man survived the catastrophe. You are the counsel of the gods, on your orders and create conflict, and so forth. Okay, some notes to Astrahasis, the book. Okay, these are all there's numbers that are next to the that I could find, like 7. This common formulaic phrase says literally he made did his mouth, commonly translated opened his mouth. However, it is clear from the related phrases in the epic of creation and Anzu that the verb implies blah blah blah. Right? Yeah, just like the footnotes. When you see these numbers, you see something written, it's got a 7 next to it, or a number next to it. Okay, and it goes on and on. Okay. And here's a source, suggested reading. Okay, then you've got the Epic of Gilgamesh. I'm going to end it there and maybe cover this on a later video, because it's the longest and greatest literary composition written in cuneiform Akkadian. What I've read is that the Sumerians weren't Semites, but the Akkadians and the Babylonians were. And when the Sumerian died out, the Akkadians adopted and adapted their language and their myths, etc., to suit their culture, their ideologies, etc. and some. Okay, so I'm going to end that video there. Hope you found that interesting. Hope I didn't babble on too much. And if you like that, then please subscribe to our channel, The Real Truth TV, and add your comments. We'd appreciate those. Give us a like. There you go, tell your friends who are Christians, non-Christians, who are interested in these myths, these ancient myths, and want to know, the true story, the real truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth about these scriptures. Where did they come from, where they originate from. They came from all of these myths, the Sumerian, Akkadian and Babylonian myths. Okay, and we shall see you on the next exciting video about the Epic of Gilgamesh.